Hello, everyone. This is the first of this webinar series on building AI first organizations, agents, AI strategy, and governance. I am Murtaza Chowdhury, and I lead AI driven modernization at Amazon Web Services. My work focuses on helping organizations move from legacy systems to modern AI powered platforms safely and pragmatically with agentic AI. Over the years, I've seen how hard modernization really is. Not because companies lack vision, but because they're tied to decades of code and infrastructure that weren't built for today's speed of innovation. That's what inspired this series to share what's working, what's changing with GenAI, and how we can build AI first organizations responsibly. This is the first of a four-part series on how enterprises are building AI first organizations. Over the next few weeks, we'll move from modernizing with GenAI to responsible AI governance, then agentic AI, and finally, how leaders apply AI to strategy and decision making. Today, we start with modernization, the foundation of everything else. Here's our path today. We'll look at why legacy systems block AI adoption, how GenAI changes the game. Walk through a framework you can apply tomorrow and see real world stories of enterprises doing this successfully. Most organizations want to leverage AI, but they are anchored by decades old systems. Modernization isn't glamorous. It's the hard foundation work that enables AI success. This picture captures the reality most enterprises face today. On the left, you see the old mainframe world, layers of legacy applications, databases, and integrations that have accumulated over decades. On the right, there's the modern cloud environment that every organization wants to reach. And right in between that wall labeled technical debt is where transformation efforts get stuck. Nearly 70% of enterprises' workloads still run on legacy stacks. These systems are full of hidden dependencies, manual processes, and expensive licensing models that make change slow and risky. This is what keeps teams from adopting AI at the pace they want. To modernize, we first have to break that wall. And that's where generative AI starts to change the game. Every enterprise wants AI, but few can move fast enough because their core infrastructure was never designed for it. Modernization frees up budget, data, and talent, the three ingredients you need for Gen AI to scale. This chart tells a clear story where companies are choosing to invest their technology dollars. On one hand, AI and data driven innovation budgets have grown dramatically over the last few years. And on the other hand, spending on maintaining legacy systems is starting to flatten and decline. I see this shift every day with large enterprises. A large insurance company, for example, redirected nearly 30% of its legacy maintenance budget toward Gen AI based claims processing tools. freeing engineers to build new capabilities rather than patching old ones. Similarly, a manufacturing customer in Europe reduced mainframe operating costs by migrating analytics workloads to the cloud, then reinvested those savings into predictive maintenance powered by AI. The trend is clear. The more organizations modernize, the more fuel they have to power their AI initiatives. Modernization isn't just an IT project anymore, it's the enabler for AI first transformation. GenAI is like an accelerant for modernization. It reads code, understands dependencies, and suggests refactors faster than any team of humans. We have seen months of work compressed into weeks, and in some cases, days. This visual shows what's really changing inside the modernization process. On the left, you see the old way: manual code reviews, dependency mapping by hand, and endless testing cycles. Each of those steps takes weeks or even months, and progress depends entirely on human effort. On the right is the GenAI assisted approach. The AI reads and rewrites code, documents dependencies automatically, runs tests, and even suggests infrastructure optimizations. What used to take months can now be done in weeks, sometimes even days, with higher consistency and fewer errors. For example, a customer used GenAI to analyze 2 million lines of .NET code, automatically generating refactoring suggestions and test cases. The output wasn't perfect, but it was 80% complete before a single developer even wrote a line. That's the shift. Humans moving from doing the heavy lifting to guiding and validating what AI produces. A simple framework I use with customers: assess, apply, scale. Assess where GenAI adds value. Apply it in high impact areas like refactoring and workflow automation. Then scale with governance and cost control. This simple framework captures how enterprises can adopt generative AI for modernization in a structured, repeatable way. It starts with assess, identifying where AI can add the most value. Not every system or workflow needs to be transformed first. The goal here is to find high impact areas where modernization will deliver immediate business benefit, like reducing licensing costs or improving developer velocity. Then we apply. This is where AI goes to work. Embedding Gen AI into code refactoring, workflow automation, and testing pipelines accelerates transformation while maintaining control and quality. Finally, we scale, expanding what works across teams with governance and measurement in place. This means setting up a feedback loop, tracking outcomes, and continuously optimizing cost, performance, and compliance. Think of it as a modernization flywheel: assess intelligently, apply efficiently, and scale responsibly. Here's what the assess, apply, scale framework looks like in action. In the assess phase, Enterprises use AI to scan millions of lines of code, map dependencies, and estimate modernization effort. What used to take weeks of manual analysis can now be done in hours. For example, a global retailer used AI driven assessment to identify 120 high value applications ready for refactoring, cutting discovery time by 85%. Then comes supply, where GenAI does the heavy lifting. Using AI refactoring tools, teams can translate code, auto generate documentation, and run functional tests automatically. One customer using the GenAI refactor tool reduced migration time by 75% while maintaining accuracy across thousands of modules. Finally, in scale, organizations move from project level wins to portfolio wide automation. They integrate AI into CI CD pipelines, track performance, and continuously optimize outcomes. A telecom customer running this model now modernizes 10 times more applications per quarter with built in governance, compliance, and cost visibility. The key idea is this: modernization success compounds when you start small, prove value, and scale intelligently. Let's look at a real example from a global bank that decided to take on one of the hardest modernization challenges: rewriting its core banking system. Their environment was built entirely on COBOL mainframes, some of it written 30 or 40 years ago. Any change required weeks of testing, and new products took months to launch. It wasn't a lack of vision, it was the gravity of legacy infrastructure. With generative AI, the bank introduced an AI assisted refactoring pipeline. The AI analyzed millions of lines of COBOL, generated Java equivalents, documented dependencies, and produced automated test cases to verify business logic. The development team stayed in the loop, reviewing, validating, and tuning as the AI learned from their feedback. The results were dramatic. Modernization timelines dropped by 75%. Costs fell by 40%. And for the first time in decades, the bank could launch new digital products on a modern cloud based core. What's powerful here isn't just speed, it's confidence. The organization moved from fearing change to embracing modernization as a continuous process. This second story comes from a large healthcare provider that wanted to modernize its patient data systems but couldn't afford even a minute of downtime. Every record, every integration point was mission critical, and compliance requirements were as high as the stakes. Instead of a traditional lift and shift approach, they built a GenAI driven feedback loop into their cloud migration. The AI analyzed existing code and data flows, generated documentation automatically, and suggested safe modernization steps. Developers reviewed each recommendation, approved changes, and the AI adapted based on their feedback. Over time, the system began anticipating compliance patterns, flagging where human oversight was most needed. The result wasn't just a modernized architecture, it was a new way of working, one where AI and people continuously improved reliability, compliance, and trust in the process. This wasn't about replacing people with AI, it was about creating a partnership that made modernization safer and smarter. Now let's look at this third story. This story comes from a global manufacturer where the supply chain was both the company's lifeline and its biggest constraint. For decades, data from procurement, production, and logistics systems flowed through an ERP that no one dared to touch. Every region had customized it differently. So, what looked like a single system was really dozens of variations stitched together. When modernization began, they started where the pain was most visible, the supply chain. AI became the lens through which the company finally understood its own complexity. Instead of jumping straight into rewriting, they used an AI layer to map processes end to end, tracing how an order moved from a supplier through assembly lines to warehouses and finally to retailers. The AI revealed hidden inefficiencies, duplicate purchase orders, inconsistent lead time assumptions, and redundant approval workflows. It even surfaced that two plants 800 miles apart were competing for the same raw materials. With that visibility, the teams didn't just modernize code, they redesigned how the business operated. Over time, AI became part of their daily rhythm. Engineers would start each morning by reviewing AI generated insights, supply bottlenecks predicted before they occurred, alternative routing suggestions, and forecast adjustments based on real time data. The transformation wasn't about replacing the ERP, it was about surrounding it with intelligence. The company went from reacting to issues to anticipating them. A supply chain that doesn't just move products, but continuously learns how to move smarter. Now let's talk about responsible AI. Responsible AI isn't something we can add later. It has to be designed in from the very beginning. These three pillars, fairness, transparency, and accountability, are what keep AI trustworthy as it scales. Fairness means making sure models don't systematically disadvantage certain users or groups. It's about testing for bias, using diverse datasets, and validating outcomes continuously. Transparency ensures people understand how decisions are made. We document model intent, data sources, and limitations so that teams and customers can see the process inside rather than treat AI as a closed box. And Accountability ties it all together. We establish governance boards, human review loops, and escalation paths so someone always owns the decision, even when AI assists in making it. Embedding responsibility from day one doesn't slow innovation, it makes it sustainable. It builds the kind of trust that allows organizations to deploy AI safely, confidently, and at scale. Let's wrap up with a few key takeaways from today's session. First, modernization is the foundation for AI adoption. Legacy systems don't just slow innovation, they block visibility and scalability. By refactoring, replatforming, or reimagining applications with GenAI, we cleared a path for real transformation. Second, AI is not a silver bullet, it's a force multiplier. The biggest wins come when AI works alongside people, accelerating analysis, automating the repetitive, and surfacing insights that help us make better decisions. Third, responsibility and governance must be built in from day one. Embedding fairness, transparency, and accountability ensures that innovation happens safely, sustainably, and with trust. And finally, this is just the beginning. Every enterprise has the potential to become AI first, not by chasing every new model, but by modernizing with purpose, scaling responsibly, and keeping humans at the center of the journey. Thank you for joining me for episode one of this four-part series. And I can't wait to continue the conversation in our next session on responsible AI in practice.